Hi everyone. Hello. All right, just bear with me now because I'm just trying to make sure that everything is the way it should be, and then we can get started. All right, so first I have to actually apologise for the late appearance. I have actually recorded this about 3 times now. For some reason, my computer isn't allowing me to download anything past 30 minutes, so I'm having to re-record again and try and keep it within 30 minutes. So apologies for that. So we're just going to briefly tap into the basics of puppy grooming and what kind of other aspects we might want to consider in order to set our puppies up for success. All right, so it's not just solely going to be about grooming. We're going to tap into a range of different things. All right. First of all, my name's Stephanie Zikmann. I'm also known as the Holistic Dog Groomer. And I've made it my mission to try and help professionals connect the dots between the relevance of styling and behaviour within the grooming environment. So it's trying to raise awareness of the benefits of learning more than what we really have to become professional groomers. All right, so that's my mission. Professionally as well, I do operate a multi-award winning dog grooming spa. This is where I am today. Anywhere for peace and quiet because the kids are just horrendous. And I do that 3 days a week. And it's going really well, and I love my job. Obviously, working with animals is probably one of the best things you can do. So that's me. So briefly, we're going to talk a little bit about breeder responsibility because I want to try and emphasise how everything is interlinked and connected. So preparing a puppy for grooming actually starts from even before the puppy is made, is developed and born. So I want to kind of highlight that. So if there are any breeders listening today, then I'm going to be talking a bit to you. Then we're going to go on to talking to guardians out there who have puppies or are thinking about getting a puppy. And then we're going to look at groomers as well and how we can work towards desensitizing puppies and introducing them to being pampered, as with as little stress, as possible. Far too early for me, clearly. So let's get straight to it. So first of all, the number one thing is starting with the breeder's responsibility, all right? So are the breeders selecting the ideal pair when they're thinking about having litters, all right? Is the breeding pair healthy? Do they have good temperaments? How are their living conditions as well? Are they being well looked after? Does mum have ample time to relax during her pregnancy? And what is their lineage like? What's their hereditary health like as well? So obviously, I mean, for many of you out there, that's stating the obvious, but there's so many irresponsible breeders out there not looking at these things, and this is what half of the battle is, because we're raising puppies that have not had the very best start. So that's part of the issue with a lot of nervous puppies that we get in to the grooming room. Then we're looking at the early stages with mum as well. Is mum given space to be a mum? Do the breeders know enough about observation of behaviour and body language to know when to intervene and when to allow the mother to just do her job as nature intends as well? And that's all to do with mother teaching her puppies doggy etiquette, and then obviously as well the litter mates bonding together and learning bite inhibition and things like that as well. Does the breeder know how to identify when that is going wrong and when to intervene and when to just step back and allow the mother and the litter mates to just do their thing? And that is really crucial because a lot of puppies learn and how to be a dog starts from that very early stage, and when breeders intervene quite often they can stop that from the puppies from developing good doggy etiquette. And again, during that time as well, it is important that mother's relaxed and that she's having time just for her. So when she feels fit and well enough, is she getting time out? Are the puppies being carefully desensitized and weaned to not being with mother as well? Sorry, I'm just going to plug in my laptop because I forgot that I haven't done that yet. And then obviously the breeder's responsibility when it comes to socialisation, and particularly relating to handling and grooming, and also objects and sounds. And while we don't want to flood a puppy with too many environmental stressors, the breeder should be thinking about introducing very basics of handling, etc., as early as 3 weeks, all depending on obviously the individual circumstances as well, if puppies have to be hand reared, for example. So it's all about handling puppies very early on, getting them used to being touched in areas that in the future could become problematic, for example the paws, nails and pads, their legs, their tail, their bottom, their ears, their eyes, their gums, etc. Thinking of your basic health check and what the puppies will have to endure for many years to come. Getting them early on introduced to those types of things can really help to build resiliency and confidence in a puppy. And it's again making sure that every experience being handled is positive at all times. You're very gentle with your handling, you're using soothing tones with your voice, and it's just, yeah, it's meant to be a really lovely bonding experience. All right. I think there's not enough emphasis on breeder checks either. I mean, I've heard so many people over lockdown buying puppies from the back of booked cars. I mean, it's horrendous. And there's zero checks being done on the breeder's part. So to me, that's just horrendous. I think that there has to be a lot more awareness raised and breeders' responsibility to select the right family for their puppies, because I think a lot of the issue with our puppies coming into the grooming environment is that their families are not savvy enough. They don't know how to handle their puppy, they don't know how to care for the coat, maybe don't have time, and it's not their fault. It's really down to the breeder to do the checks to make sure that the families that are taking in their puppies do have enough experience behind them to commit, enough time to commit to the maintenance involved in looking after the puppy, depending on the breed and character. So all puppies are different, as we all know, so you cannot get a cookie cutter puppy based on a litter. They're all different even within the litter, so you'll have different characters and they'll like different things and they'll maybe be more fearful of different things, and it's really a great way of, observation goes a long way, so breeders can begin to kind of observe each puppy and they'll have in their head an idea of what type of family would be best suited for that puppy. So when they're looking at prospective families, you can think of how to select the best match based on the puppy's characteristics and coat demands. For a puppy that's more introverted, they might need a more experienced family, maybe a family with kind of older children as opposed to younger children. If they're maybe a bit mouthy as well and need a wee bit more work done going forward, then they might not want to have a family with really young children either, because we all know that the likelihood is that a family's not going to tolerate that if they have young children that they need to worry about as well. So it's just having a wee bit more due diligence and finding the right family for your puppy as a breeder. And also breeder's contract as well, not having it in a clause to say that they cannot be bred from, I think is really important, because there are far too many irresponsible breeders out there. And also with that programme, oh my gosh, what was it called? How to Get Rich Being a Breeder or something. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I'm sorry if I've offended anyone, but it's just, to me, it just doesn't make any sense. So we're wanting to make sure that we're not encouraging any irresponsible breeders or breeding. Also, a lifetime take-back guarantee as well, because we're wanting to, many groomers have it in their contracts. For example, I have my female Tibetan Mastiff. She was displaying quite worrying resource guarding and food aggression. And at that point, I didn't have any knowledge of canine behaviour behind me. I was quite ignorant. And yes, that's a fault of mine, but also a fault of the breeders for not doing their due diligence. So I took home this puppy with no idea what to expect. And when I asked the breeder to take her back, they point blank refused, even though on the contract it said there was a lifetime take back guarantee. And I just think that's terrible. Fortunately, I love pets and I love dogs, so I actually went out my way and I studied the Canine Behaviour Diploma at the ISCP, and I obtained my certification in dog behaviour, and since then I've been working really hard with Nala to overcome those issues. But obviously we all know that that's not always the case, and some families don't have the time nor the finances to go out and do things like that. So again, you find a lot of dogs are put into rescues, and that again just snowballs into a massive issue for all pet professionals involved as well, especially with your higher coat demands as well. So that's something to always consider if you are a breeder as well. Please, before you think about breeding, be prepared that you have to, or you should be honouring that lifetime take-back guarantee. And if you cannot commit to that, then you shouldn't really be breeding. I know that Aussie Doodle breeders have been castrating puppies before they even leave the home. Again, I think our opinions will all vary there, but personally speaking, I just think that there's going to be a lot of issues long term on those puppies. I don't think that's the answer, but only time will tell at the end of the day. Then the guardian, so it's not just the breeder's responsibility to do their due diligence, obviously the guardian's research as well. And please, I know it's not grooming related, but it is all relevant, guys. So as a guardian, before you set out to get a puppy, you need to think about 3 things. First of all, you need to think about your location. So where is it do you stay? Do you stay in a flat? Do you have neighbours that might complain? Do you have a big garden? Is the garden safe? Do you have no garden, in which case do you have good dog walking spots or enclosed dog runs available nearby? Are you near a busy road? Are you in an open field with working farms nearby that may be a risk as well? Do you have your own home, or are you renting? Have you asked permission from your landlord? How can you keep your puppy safe? Is everything in the home and outside the home all puppy proof? What things do you need to consider? And also something that many people overlook is your plants in your garden and also within the home. Are they dog friendly? You also need to think about finances. So how much money do you have to spare each month? And also, bear in mind, dog guardianship is hard and you cannot predict what expenses you're going to have to pay out in the future. So you first have the purchase of your puppy, which during lockdown rocketed, as we all know, so that was really expensive. But you've also got bedding and toys, food, treats, training aids, accessories as they grow as well. You've got insurance, boosters, flea tick and worm training, home repair, if your puppy likes to destroy things, for example. Unexpected vet bills, even with insurance, can be quite difficult to pay for if you haven't got the finances there or the savings behind you. Then you've got to think about your doggy daycare prices, dog walking, dog lodging if you're going on holiday, and also, of course, grooming, which is probably the one you're going to be at the most. That and dog walking maybe. So dog grooming is a massive expense for most dogs really, but the more complex the coat type, obviously, the more regularly you're going to be at the groomers as well. So you have to have all that in your budget and make sure that you're prepared to pay what needs to be paid for the rest of that dog's life. All right. Then you have to think about lifestyle. So as much as you want that lovely teddy bear cut cockapoo, is that realistic for your lifestyle? Are you a very busy working family? Do you have time to spare to thoroughly brush your dog every single day? Do you have time to walk the puppy every day? Do you have time to play and train and care for your dog? But also think about functional characters of dog breeds as well. So if you're a very active family, would you be better suited to an active dog breed, for example, a collie, or something that likes to walk far, like your Arctic breeds, like your Huskies? Or are you more of a kind of hermit-based family where you like to cozy in front of the fire, in which case you might need a more lapdog type breed that's quite happy to be at home most of the time with access to a garden and like maybe 1 or 2 short walks a day? Coat type is a massive thing to consider because I think many guardians select based on how a dog looks or how cute they look, rather than what's realistic. All right, and your poodle mixed coats are not always hypoallergenic. I can't say that word. Hypoallergenic. Oh my goodness. They're not always asthma proof either, so you have to bear in mind that all dogs are different. And also with your poodle mixes and Bichon mixes, they are incredibly hard to maintain as well, and that is a commitment that you have to be prepared for. Grooming bills are going to be more expensive as well because they are complex coats even for us to manage. And you have to be prepared to take your puppy in every 4 weeks for your kind of doodle mixes, all right? So is that realistic for you, or are you far too busy, and would you be better suited to, for example, a wire coat or a short coat? Bearing in mind that short coats cast the whole year round, which a lot of people don't know. And also wire coats will need either hand stripping or regular grooming as well. So even though your dog might have a short coat, it doesn't mean they don't need groomed, and that's something that I think many people forget. Whether it's in the house or it's in the professional capacity, you will have to have all dogs groomed no matter what, because grooming is not just about styling, which we're going to get to, all right? So the first few days of welcoming a puppy into your home is often the most traumatising for your puppy because it's new scents and new environmental stressors. They're away from their family and everything's new to them. But the first thing many guardians want to do is bath their puppy. And that's probably one thing I would try and not advise you to do, especially within the first few days while they're trying to acclimatise to a new environment and decompress. So rather than that, you can opt to have your grooming wipes where you can just gently stroke and kind of rinse through the coat that way. That's okay, but for the first few days, just let your dog kind of get his bearings and acclimatise to the environment, all right? Having a plan in place prior is very important as well. So ensure everyone in the family are on the same page. They know where the puppy's boundaries are. They know where he's going to sleep. The children in the family know where his safe space is, which means that they shouldn't be in there harassing him. They know where they can roam. And you have a list of pet professionals that are force-free, that are all prepared to work with you in advance before you even get a puppy, so you know exactly what you're doing. After the first few days and the puppy's now settled in, you can start to introduce your routine, and that's in every kind of aspect. Obviously, it'll be kind of home-based until he has his second lot of jags. But again, that doesn't mean to say you can't start to introduce more like longer sessions of handling, for example, or you can maybe introduce the bath now. It all depends on your confidence as well, what you're comfortable with, but definitely start to think about getting your puppy into a consistent routine and allow every member of the family to have their turn at it as well, because you want to encourage the puppy to bond with every member of their intimate family, so people that are actually living in the household. Once he has settled in and kind of got used to you guys, then you can start to invite other members of the family in to welcome the puppy as well. Socialising and handling and grooming can also start then, as I said, but there is a myth that you don't take a puppy into the professional groomer until they're 6 months, which is a myth. Grooming, as we all know, starts very early on with the mother, where she cleans the puppy. The breeder then should be introducing kind of gentle handling and maybe occasional rinsing as well of the puppies very early on, and then you should also be introducing it at home before they even go to the professional groomer. You can keep sessions really short and positive at all times, so you can use really high value rewards and licking mats, for example, to start introducing that puppy to being handled in their more complex areas like the ears, doing the eyes, maybe the bottom, the pads, etc. Light handling, and you start with just your hands, and then you can work gradually up to tools like soft kind of bristle brushes even, and then into your kind of slicker brushes again. It's being aware of your technique, which we'll get on to next. Before we do, nails is a massive one. So again, I just want to quickly brief into this. Less is more frequently with nails, all right? So rather than waiting for the nails to be overly long to then snip them, just check in on them every couple of days, get used to the puppy, get into the habit of getting the puppy used to having his nails touched with your hands, and then you can work up to using the clippers as well. The thing with leaving the nails to grow or to overly grow is that the quick can then grow with the nail, and it makes it harder then to have the nail at a comfortable length without cutting into the quick. So it's far better to get them done kind of every couple of days. Just check in on them and just get them used to being handled there. The more handling, then the more resiliency they're going to build, but also the less likely they're going to ever be overly long. And be mindful again of the dew clause. Also, you can help to manage nail length by walking on concrete as well as grass. Obviously, it's great to have the dog forage around longer grass, etc., but also give them that time on concrete to naturally grind their nails. There are other alternatives as well for extremely nervous dogs, like scratch boards, etc., but if you have any questions on that, then please just pop them in the thread and I'll get back to them. So before you even think about bathing and drying your dog, especially if it is a more complex coat, like your double coated breeds or your curly coated breeds or mixed or combination coated breeds like your doodles, etc., take a masterclass at your chosen groomers, all right? Insist that they give you that, because it is an invaluable thing to have behind you, especially with lockdown. We all know now the importance of knowing how to carefully and successfully maintain coats between grooms, don't we? So a masterclass will help you to pick up the best techniques, how to safely bath them, what products to use, how to use the tools, and you can ask as many questions as you want. I'm sure your groomer will be more than happy to oblige there. And it is a chargeable service, but it is worth its weight in gold, and I do that with all of my clients. And I also want to emphasise that grooming is not styling. So I'm just about to publish my very first book, The Magic of Holistic Grooming, and it's been written to try and raise the awareness of the difference between grooming and styling. All right, so grooming is actually, in my opinion, a practice that everyone should know, because it is the procedure of bonding, really, how you can use really, stroking, handling, massage, alternative therapies like Reiki, etc. That's all grooming as far as I'm concerned. Anything that helps to enhance well-being and preserve health is grooming as far as I'm concerned. And you'll learn all about that in my book, because it takes you through how nature uses grooming to strengthen social structures and to also keep themselves healthy and happy. So grooming is more about keeping the body clean. So you can bath and dry at home, no problem, but you also can use grooming as a time to really bond with your animal. And it should always be a positive experience. Styling, on the other hand, is a very intricate art form and skill that you have to have training for, and it's not something that I would ever recommend you do at home unless you have obtained the training and qualification behind you. And it is something that you are paying for at the groomers as well. But when it comes to grooming, certainly everyone should be actively doing that for their pets. Preparing the space at home is also a really significant thing, because you want the experience to be positive. So you want it to be a really intimate experience between you and your puppy. So having it in a designated space away from distractions, including TVs and phones, you want to really dedicate that time with your puppy to you and your puppy, and make it as positive and relaxing as you possibly can. Also making sure that you have the right tools available and that you know how to use them, but that's all there in the masterclass that you'll have. And also ask your groomer if they provide you with grooming caddies as well, because they can maybe upsell you that so that you have everything that you need, and what they'll be using within the spa as well. So that's your peace of mind. And when I talk about setting the intention, I'm just talking about you're setting the intention to have a calm and relaxing experience with your puppy. It's going to be positive, because we know that energy is transferable onto every living thing. So if you're stressed, then your puppy will pick up on that. So you want to make sure that grooming's done at a time where you're all relaxed, and that will then feed onto your dog will then feed off of that energy. All right, we are energy beings at the end of the day. And like I said, we can incorporate tilting T-touch, Reiki, canine massage. There's all sorts of things that we can also incorporate into our grooming rituals, which will help to make that grooming experience a very positive one for your puppy. Health checking and stroking, again, making sure that you're health checking your puppy, making sure that there's nothing there that wasn't there before, for example, skin tags or cuts or injuries or skin conditions or a change of coat texture. All of these can indicate that something's wrong. Very early signs usually as well, so you can catch them really early on. It's another wonderful time to really find things that you wouldn't normally if you weren't actively grooming your puppy every day. Brushing and combing obviously is part of that again, and it depends on all different coat types, but you will have different tools for different coat types, and again I can send you a resource later on to help you with that. Bathing and drying, again, you can introduce that every couple of weeks for a puppy just to get them used to it, keeping it very positive, and then you can then look at maybe setting it to every month thereafter. It's more than enough to bath your puppy, because we're wanting to obviously keep the natural oil production as it is as well. We don't want to interfere with that too much. So different things that I use for puppies is my blow-up pedicure bath for humans, but it's a great introduction to the bathing experience for puppies, and you can buy them and have them at home. You just pre-fill the bath, and then you carefully and very gently bath your puppy. And this little photo here is Lunar. He's a Cavachon, and he's actually got a wee shower cap on him because he had a wee ear infection at the time, so we wanted to keep the ears free from water. And he got on really well. So again, that's just a really nice way to introduce bath time to a puppy. Exfoliating mitts, my go-to tool in the bath, and it's just because they're so versatile, and also you can get into all the nooks and crannies that are more difficult to get to using a scrunchie, for example. So with the exfoliated mitt, you can really manipulate where your hands are going, getting into difficult areas which you would otherwise find difficult. They're cheap to buy and they're easy to clean, and they last a long time too. So I would definitely recommend them for groomers and guardians at home. And I also have a warm towel, so a pre-warm towel ready to scoop a puppy up after the bath time, because obviously the transition from the hot water to the cold air can be quite surprising to a puppy. So rather that, I like to just wrap them round and keep them nice and snug and just squeeze dry whatever excess moisture is there. And again, I like to also introduce the dryer at this point at a distance, so we're working with desensitization gradually, and we're keeping that dog close and secure, and that's a nice way to start introducing the sound of the dryer. And again, we're keeping the towel wrapped around the ear so it's kind of diluting the sound slightly, and it seems to work wonders for me within the spa environment as well, guys. And of course as well, don't be afraid to have fun. There are a lot of groomers out there that say that grooming should be serious, it should be firm, but I'm not an agreeer of that. I just think that bath time for children, for example, you want to make it fun and engaging, and it's the same for puppies. And if we think about puppies being the equivalent to a 2 to 3 year old child, then what would you do for a 2 to 3 year old child? You would try to make it fun and relaxing and positive at all times. So what I tend to do for the more nervous puppies is I let them expel some energy between sections. So they might have a wee play time before the bath, then they'll have a wee play time after the bath, and then again during the drying process as well. Obviously be mindful of, if your puppy is wet, then keep on a carpeted flooring so he's not going to slip about, or you can put down yoga mats or just mats or carpets, rugs, if you are in the salon, just so that they're not slipping around. But it's absolutely okay to have fun with a puppy and keep it fun. And also you can implement things like mat protocol and table protocol, which is similar to the bucket game, to try and build up that association with, on the table or on the mat is grooming time, but I have that access there to the floor to play as well. I keep my table lowered at all times so that a puppy can choose to jump off and on when he needs to. And again, if the puppy's really anxious, you can implement licky mats and snuffle mats. I use a licky mat in the bath sometimes as well, just keeping it positive and trying to change that underlying emotional response from the bath is scary to now the bath is not scary. It does take time, but that's why in a professional setting we do implement things like puppy university or puppy intros, which we'll get into actually next, so we'll just wait to the next slide. So I've already said positive training and desensitization. Again, you have to observe body language and behaviour. If your puppy is displaying anything, any kind of signals that show that they're stressed, then give them a break. That's all it is. And we can also use our own body language and behaviours to try and instill calm as well. We can yawn, for example. We can blink slowly. We can turn to the side. We can crouch down to their level. I've actually seen myself play bowing and jumping around like a proper numpty. And you'll probably see videos on my Facebook page doing that. But it works to build up that bond, that trusting bond. And again, as well, I want to emphasise the benefits of using safe handling and gentle guidance as opposed to physical restraints. And obviously there are instances where you might have to use restraints in terms of welfare, for example, removing matting. But if the guardian and the groomer are working together to make sure that the coat is well maintained, then that should never be an issue anyway. And if we start a puppy up on the right foot or paw, we shouldn't ever really need to use an excessive amount of handling restraints. The only restraining aid that I tend to use is a belly strap, very padded belly strap, and that's for the dogs with hip dysplasia who maybe need a little bit more help with standing up. But again, I am constantly observing body language and cues, and I'm giving them ample rest. But there are alternative ways we can work with an animal that's safe, that doesn't require physically restraining a dog, because when we think about dogs being energy beings as well, they need to feel safe and free to express natural and normal behaviour. So when they are, restrained to turn using a neck strap and they're restrained at the tummy, then they're going to get more stressed and they're going to feel unsafe. And obviously when that happens, that's when we see an escalation of behaviours, and that's when we see our fight and flight responses. So really, what I tend to do is just lower my table all the way down to floor level, and I implement positive training methods to encourage my puppy to want to actually stand, because they know when they stand they get treats, and they also know that they have choice to leave the table for playtime if and when they choose. And believe it or not, when they get used to that, I can do a groom that way within the same time frame, probably in less time than in the traditional way of using restraints. We are constantly fighting against the puppy or dog. So it's not always, it's a myth when people say that it's going to take you hours to do. It really doesn't, because it's all about that cooperation and mutual respect for one another, all right? So there's the snuffle mat and the licky mat. And here are some grooming woes: mouthing and biting, fool around and extreme fear. So many puppies do mouth and bite your tools, but it's just about giving them an alternative distraction, for example a licky mat or a snuffle mat or even a natural chew. But again, be mindful if a puppy is displaying resource guarding, etc., it is worthwhile mentioning that to the professional, because it might not be suitable in a multi-grooming environment. For example, there are some puppies like my Nala that I was telling you about that cannot be in the same room as another dog when there's a high value reward even rustled, and that can put a lot of people and the puppy himself in danger. So always make sure you're honest with your professional when it comes to things like resource guarding, etc., because that's something that we would need to then adapt to, because we can use alternatives. For example, we can use praise and petting as well, or games, for example. So there's always an alternative thing we can do to try and make that experience positive, but just be honest. Again, we need to understand the difference between fool around and general play. So again, we'd be looking at the context for that. And if we are sure that it's fool around, then we would then just slow down the whole process and maybe break up grooming sessions to shorter periods and just work at desensitising them through the process with some either operant or classical conditioning. We can look up the likes of Dr. Sophia Yin on YouTube for amazing resources there. And again, some puppies will show extreme fear, particularly in neglect cases. So if puppies have been rescued and they've been neglected or abused, there's some deep-rooted trauma there that might often never get resolved. And how we go about that is just devising between us a bespoke care plan. So that would be when you would take an experienced and qualified positive canine behaviourist, and you would ask them to work alongside you and the groomer to implement a really bespoke care plan to try and help manage the situation and try and help make it better for that puppy. But it's crucial that you remain calm and patient and positive at all times and don't lose hope, okay? So again, overexposure and trigger stacking, flooding, very common within the grooming environment and very important to avoid. And it's more to do with if a puppy is showing really extreme fear in the bath suddenly, then you try your best to just stop it immediately and you work again. You take it back a few stages and you start to desensitize again. But again, you would be making sure any kind of experienced force-free groomer will know that or wouldn't risk, putting a puppy into a bath straight away to risk that happening. That is the whole point of building up to it through a puppy university package, okay? Multi-grooming establishments can often be a little bit more difficult to manage, but there are ways we can try and adapt that. And again, I talk about this an awful lot in my accredited diploma course that I've designed for groomers, where they can look at different ways of adapting their space to suit a more fearful dog. So if you want to find out more about that, the information about the academy will be coming up at the end of the slide, okay? And again, impatience and unrealistic expectations. If you've got a fearful dog, you have to be prepared to have patience. You have to be prepared to work alongside the professionals and listen to their advice. And most importantly of all, you have to be willing to do the homework at home and be consistent with it at all times. All force-free methods, all positive-based methods, zero punishment, all right? Meet and treat as well. You have to make sure that you are going for a meet and treat first of all to make sure that the groomer that you select is the right groomer for you. Ask them any questions that you have in the initial meeting and make sure that you know what to expect. Puppy University, as I've mentioned, is a series of shorter sessions for a puppy to help introduce them to the process of grooming in the least invasive way. Usually a series of 6 sessions. The 6th session will be their first puppy cut, all right? But again, it could vary from dog to dog. Some will take longer, some will take less time. Again, just be prepared to work with the professional when deciding what's best for your puppy. Consistency and synchronized care. So again, I write about this in my book. Everything is interlinked to everything else, and that's what this slide was trying to emphasize. It all starts before the puppy's born. If we are setting the puppy up for success from the very moment he's conceived, right the way through, consistent and synchronised, all professionals and guardians and breeders working together, then we will have the best chance of having a puppy who is happy and content and relaxed and confident in the grooming environment. And when we think about it, grooming is a massive part of a dog's life. He will be there in the groomers on a monthly basis or maybe every 6 weeks for the rest of his life. So it is something really important and often overlooked. So synchronised care and consistency is so important.